What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of The Lead. If you have not seen yet, I got a very special guest with me. His name is Andy Yanez. He works for University of Houston, does all their media. He's also in Clutch City Control Room, I
Mhm.
believe. Yes.
Yes, I guess we just went under the Apollo Houston branch, so we're doing stuff with them. But yeah, like you mentioned, I'm doing stuff for the Daily Cougar, that's the student newspaper at the University of Houston, and I'm kind of like the beat reporter for the men's basketball team. But I'm also a sports editor, so I know pretty much a little bit about every sport at U of H. But yeah, with Apollo Houston, we're doing my role with them is just doing a podcast on U of H, both men's and women's basketball.
That was some unexpected money moves right there, man. I didn't expect
Yeah,
Apollo to do that with Jackson and have
yeah,
all y'all join. That's fun,
yeah.
man.
Kudos. Like, everything goes to Jackson, man. He's one of the hardest workers we got. He's cooking
Yeah,
up things.
yeah, that dude is amazing. That's some next level stuff right there. I was shocked by that. But we're here to talk some Cougars basketball, man. The
Yeah.
number two seed in the Midwest region. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, number two seed's pretty high. It's it's where they should be. Just the season they had. They went 24-3 overall, including the conference tournaments. They honestly didn't have. They had one bad loss, which came in the middle of February, early February against East Carolina.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they lost to Wichita State on the road, they made the NCAA tournament as well. And then early in December, or towards the end of December, they lost to Tulsa. I believe it was like the second or third game after they had come out of their COVID pause. So those were the only three games they lost. So they've been consistent all season long. I mean, that's really where they should have been. That East Carolina loss, honestly, is what kind of prevented them from being in that number one seed talk.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I've loved the addition of Kelvin Sampson, however many years ago, about what 4, 5, 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
So, I my dad was always high on him when he was at Indiana, and he told me that the Cougars knocked it out of the park when they hired him, and the way he's transcended the program. I mean, they were 13 and 19 one year with
Mhm.
him, and look at them now.
Yeah.
So what he's done, and so a lot of kudos to him and the staff over there. They've done amazing things. And
Yeah.
to kick into the Midwest region, I want to get into this. This looks scary, man. Midwest looks like some murderer's row right here. Do you think the Cougars can hang with these teams?
It honestly depends. That's what March Madness is about. Honestly, any given day, whenever they play, it depends what player is going off, honestly, or who's having a bad shooting night. When it comes to the Cougars bracket specifically, I'd say anything short of Sweet 16 is probably disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Their first round matchup is against Cleveland State, and if they do advance, they play the winner of Clemson and Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, once you get into the Sweet 16, that's when you get into some of those powerhouse teams. Just to mention West Virginia, and on the number one side of the Midwest region, you got Illinois and even Oklahoma State. So they certainly have a lot of talent. But like I said, when it comes to Cleveland State in their first round matchup on Friday, obviously they're going to be heavy favorites in that game. And
Yeah.
for those that haven't seen U of H, I mean, what really is their identity for the team? They're not like a shoot first team. Their identity revolves around rebounding and
Mm-hmm.
defense. The thing they've had going for them in the conference tournament, at least, and honestly, like probably the last few weeks of the season, it's just that Quentin Grimes kind of caught fire. And for those that don't know, you're gonna hear a lot of Quentin Grimes in the NCAA tournament. Uh, Grew up, he played high school ball in the Houston area, or from the Woodlands. He was a McDonald's All-American, went to Kansas before transferring to Houston. And last season he was kind of a bit up and down. He's kind of started finding a rhythm toward the end of the season before everything got shut down because of the coronavirus. But this season, really, he's been a lot more consistent, and in the last few games, he's just been on fire. And against Memphis in the semifinals round against in the American Athletic Conference tournament, he really was kind of the one to help push U of H over Memphis in that game.
Yeah, definitely. You're going to hear a lot of Quentin Grimes. The three guard matchups that you have with Grimes and Sasser and Giroux, I
Yeah.
think is just going to overpower Cleveland State just a bit much. One thing with Cleveland State, the senior 6'5" Torrey Patton, you're going to hear a lot about him in this matchup. Average 15 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, only 3 assists. And I haven't got to see any like Cleveland State games quite yet, but I wonder for a guard being 6'5", averaging 8 rebounds a game, what do you know what style do they play and do they pose any threat to U of H?
Well, any team can pose a threat in the NCAA tournament. It's funny you say or that we're recording this on Wednesday morning. We're recording this on Wednesday evening, but on Wednesday morning, Kelvin Sampson had a Zoom call with reporters, and he talked a little bit about Cleveland State. And really, he said they're a guard-oriented team.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, Patton obviously he's the leading scorer for the Vikings, but really the player that Kelvin highlighted, his name's Trey Gamillion,
Yeah,
and he called them the straw that stirs the whole. He called them the straw that stirs the drink for Cleveland State. But um, he called them a guard-oriented team, so you're going to see a lot of movement, cutting, shooting. They have one player that hit 10 threes in a game. I believe his name was Demoy Hodge, if I'm not mistaken. He hit 10 threes in the game. He also said that they always play with a big man, no matter what they do, they're always going to have at least one big man on the court. So, like you mentioned, I'm not too well, I haven't seen Cleveland State all season, but I'd imagine it'd be interesting to see if they kind of go four guard with the one big, or if they kind of have the traditional three guard lineup and two big men.
yeah, for sure. I see what Cleveland State's looking at their stats, looking at different things. I think U of H overall, I mean, they average more points than them, but the biggest thing is U of H just passes the ball a
Yeah.
ton. And that's what I love so much about Sampson is everybody gets a share of the sugar. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you get a scoop, you get a scoop, you get a scoop, and everybody, it's just clean fundamental basketball that I just love watching U of H and the very different styles from what I'm used to seeing with U of H, what a lot of the older audience is used to seeing, just a lot of high tempo, fast pace, get it going, which they can still do, don't get me wrong, but uh talk about what U of H has done as a passing oriented team, how they can create problems for the other teams in the tournament.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of plays into this is that for really much that I've covered U of H, they haven't had that dominant scorer that's gonna get you, drop 20, 30 points until this season when Quentin Grimes has kind of stepped up and filled that role. Um, Even then, they don't. What the U of H program does is they always feed the hot hand. So against Memphis, that was Quentin Grimes, and other games. You mentioned Marcus Sasser, Dejan Giroux against Tulane in the quarterfinals. Dejan Giroux had a triple double. He had a 15 point, 10 assists, 10 rebound triple double. After that Memphis game, Penny Hardaway called the three guards a three-headed monster.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where most of UH's offense is going to come from. And like I said, the reason they kind of share the ball so much is because they're patient, and they run one of those motion offenses where you'll see them swing the ball really all around the perimeter from one side to the other. They'll give it to a big man, pass it back out. They're patient with their offense, and for the most part, you're not really going to see them jack up, or rush shot early in the shot clock. Um, One of the things that also benefits them is, like I said, they're not a shot first team, or they're where they score their offense is like on second chance points. So even if Quentin Grimes shooting, you're gonna have like 4 3 players crashing the boards and trying to get that offensive rebound, and that's really where they honestly that's really where they kill teams, is with those how physical they are and how dominant they are on the glass.
For sure. And referencing back from the other teams I was mentioning in this Midwest region, if you do get past a Cleveland State, which I just can't see Cleveland State beating the Cougars, that would be
Yeah,
very, very upsetting. Do you see
yeah.
that though? Do you?
No, obviously anything's possible. But
For
if they
sure.
lose to Cleveland State, that would, like you said, it'd be a huge upset, and honestly, it'd be really, really disappointing. But I
Mhm.
don't see it happening just in terms of how much talent they have.
Yeah.
Uh, could say Quentin Grimes is off and Sasser is off. it could be close, but U of H kind of knows how to win ugly. And the good thing about the American Athletic Conference tournament is that they won games in so many different ways. Against Memphis, it was a close game. And now here, I'll say one thing that they should be concerning for them is sometimes they go on offensive scoring droughts. And against Memphis, that was the case where they were up double digits at halftime. And then I think they went about a stretch. It might have been 6 or 7 minutes where they didn't score at all. No free throws, no nothing. And that's what allowed Memphis to get back in the game. And honestly, they took the lead. They took a 4 point lead. It was a 16 point, point differential. And it was a close game. So then they were able to pull it out, which is good that they've shown that they can win, obviously, by blowing teams out, but also in a close, when it's a crunch time type of game. But it's concerning that sometimes they do have those scoring droughts, and sometimes they do end up settling for shots. The problem is, they pass it around so much, the shot clock's winding down. Sometimes they have to take rush three.
Yeah, yeah. And your potential next matchup would be either Clemson or Rutgers. And now you get into okay, we're getting a little bit stepped up in the competition. I see Clemson beating Rutgers. And so you got a potential matchup between the Cougars and the Clemson Tigers. What can you see as a potential problem for U of H if they face Clemson?
Honestly, like I said, I think if they don't get to the Sweet 16, the main problem would have to be like a U of H internal problem.
Mm-hmm.
Say they go on a stretch where they can't score. The good thing about U of H is since they are a rebounding and defense first type of team, they'll rely on that. I mean, shoot, they went 6 minutes against Memphis without scoring a basket, and they were it was a tied game.
Yeah.
So I think they always have that to rely on. But, when it comes to the March Madness type of setting, if say another player on the other team catches fire, even if you play good defense, sometimes they'll make tough shots. And if that happens and then you can't score offensively, that's when I could see U of H getting into trouble in the first and second round. But I think they just have way too many weapons to really kind of be into trouble. And the good thing about Dejan Duro kind of Kelvin Sampson earlier in the season said he needed him to be more Tom Brady than Patrick Mahomes. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that Dejan has kind of grown into. He's not going to force stuff. When he had that triple double against Tulane, he had 6 assists by halftime and he hadn't turned the ball over once. So that's kind of what helps U of H control the tempo. And then oftentimes they're not going to be the ones that beat themselves.
Mm. And after that, you got a scary one. And the team I always pick every time I run my bracket, I
Mhm.
always pick the Bob Huggins coach team. West Virginia is absolutely scary. Does U of H do they have any type of solution for that full court press?
No, it's funny you mentioned that they've shown that full court pressure gives them problems. That's something that Memphis did the entire game in that conference
Yes.
tournament, and they turned the ball over a lot in that game. And one of the key players to watch for U of H is going to be Tremont Mark. He's
Mhm.
kind of like their sixth man. He's a freshman. He from Dickinson, another Houston player, but in that game against Memphis, he struggled against that full court pressure, and Kelvin Sampson kind of showed that he has trust in him. Obviously, he's a freshman, and this is going to be his first March Madness run. But what U of H needs to figure out is not kind of when it comes to Tremont Mark specifically, not try to dribble past a full court press. You got to be patient. You got to pass it around, find the open person, and then, once you get past half court, run your offense. The problem that they had against Memphis was oftentimes you'd have players dribble, try to pass it, and then, whenever you tip the ball and that's when everything goes wrong. Um, that's something that could be a problem because Memphis did it and they had a lot of success doing it. Cincinnati tried to do it, but that game was just so lopsided, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, they beat the hell out of Cincinnati. That was sad. That was
Yeah.
absolutely just I hate to been a Bearcat fan. My goodness.
And to make it worse, they've had like 6 players transfer since Sunday's
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
They've
yeah,
entered the
for
transfer
sure.
portals.
So that was not pretty. I did not expect that to be. It felt like UH and Memphis should have been the championship game,
Yeah.
or Wichita State, of course, too. But
Yeah.
you know, but
It's something about matchups. We on the women's side, UH lost to Central Florida, and that was the third meeting they had. It's matchups where sometimes you don't match up well against a team, but Cincinnati, they upset Wichita State. Everyone kind of expected Wichita State to be penciled into the championship game,
Yeah.
and Cincinnati upset them, but they just were not a good match. The one time they met in the regular season, it was the same thing. They lost by 38 points at Fertitta Center.
hmm And the murderer's row of the Midwest does not stop with West Virginia. I mean, you got Illinois, the number one seed. You have Oklahoma State. You got Tennessee, San Diego State as well. Like, we've already discussed about West Virginia and the potential matchups, problems. I mean, for in terms of full court press, can U of H be again hanging with an Illinois, with a Cade Cunningham and Illinois from OK State or Tennessee or San Diego State, very well coached teams? What do you think? What do you think about that?
Can they hang? I think they're always going to be able to hang just because of their defense and rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when you get to players that are good as Cade Cunningham, who some people have him as the number one overall pick, that's a different, player from anyone that they faced this season in the American Athletic Conference. But even then, like I mentioned, a lot of it's going to honestly be what type of offense they can get from their three guards, and even Tremont Mark, or another name to keep an eye on will be Cameron Tyson. He's kind of the 3-point specialist for U of H. But when you get that late into the tournament, it doesn't matter if you could hold teams to low points, but if you can't score, you can't put the basket in through the hoop, or if you can't put the basket through the hoop, you're gonna struggle no matter what. So I think that's gonna be the key thing is, can they consistently produce on the offensive end? And
Mm-hmm.
if the answer is yes, like Quentin Grimes showed against Memphis, or really throughout the entire tournament, and Marcus Sasser had a slump to end the regular season, but it looks like he found his shot in that conference tournament, and they can get production from their guards, they're going to be in it. Doesn't matter who the other opponent is. And that's something that the Cincinnati head coach said. And honestly, all three head coaches that lost to U of H in the conference tournament said it all depends on their offense and the three guards. And whoever, whether it's Gonzaga, Baylor, we're talking about different regions, but if they get their offense and really in a groove, they're going to be a tough out.
We've seen multiple times from March Madness and the brackets and the tournament that you can have one guy carry a team. Like,
Yeah.
as long as you have one guy, that guy can carry you throughout the tournament. Do you see Quentin Grimes, the potential of him possibly flourishing in this tournament?
For sure. And I sound like a broken record, but like he showed it in the American Athletic Conference tournament. And he's had one heck of a season. He made the AP
Mm-hmm.
All-American third team. And I think today he was also announced that he was the United States Writers Basketball Association third team. So he's getting a whole bunch of accolades. He was the co-conference player of the year. So he's up there with those talents. Obviously, it's different when you're talking about Cade Cunningham and those type of players, but he's shown that if he has a shot going, and he gets into his rhythm where he'll just you won't even notice. Against it was earlier in the season where he dropped 18 straight points at one point. Like, he was the only one scoring for U of H, but he can get hot. And when that happens, when he gets in those zones, I mean, honestly, everything he shoots, it ends up going in. And one time he shot a shot from the U of H logo, and it still went in when he was in one of those streaky zones. So can he do it? Yeah. Can he do it for 6 games to lead to a national championship? That's a different story.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I know you're not expected of it because you got a three guard lineup. You got other guys that you mentioned, and this you basically answered one of my questions, because the one I was going to ask you, besides Grimes and Sasser and Giroux, if people do know them, what is somebody that can come out of nowhere that the people don't know that you think could be a bright spot for U of H?
Uh, if you're, I'll give you two answers. If you're talking about guards, it'll be Tremont Mark, who's the freshman. He's honestly, for sure, he's the first guard off the bench, and he's been he had a rough stretch in the conference tournament, but uh, for those of you that didn't have not watched, you should. The way the regular season ended between
Yeah.
Houston and Memphis, he's the one that shot the near half court buzzer beater to beat the Tigers in the final game of the regular season. But that's what he came here for from Dickinson. He was known as a scoring machine. And shoot, at the beginning of the season, people were comparing him to James Harden and other type of players, like in terms of style, not talent. That's way too unreasonable expectations to put on him. But U of H is high on Tremont Mark, and obviously he's a freshman, so his minutes are going to be limited in terms of how the games go. But if he can get going, that's one thing he'll always be able to do is score the basket, and that could be a potential X factor. The other player I wanted to mention was Justin Gorham, who's the senior
Mm-hmm.
forward,
Mm-hmm.
starting senior forward, and what he is, he's a rebounding machine. At one point, I believe it was 9 straight games where he finished with double-digit rebounds during the season, and he had like 6 or 7 double doubles in the season. He's not going to kill you offensively in terms of just scoring, but what he can do for U of H is get offensive rebounding, and that's really his biggest strength to track down every type of board. And going back to that Memphis game in the semifinals of the conference tournament, he was big in the last stretch. He got an offensive rebound on one of Quentin Grimes' misses, and that led to Memphis having to foul him. He made both free throws, and then when Boogie Ellis took the shot to tie the game, he missed, and Justin Gorham got the rebound. And that game against Memphis is probably the closest thing they'll have to one of those close March Madness games, and you'll be able to use that to kind of see how they do. But if U of H can rebound, which is something that's their identity.
Yes.
The key, obviously, it comes down to can you make free throws, and Justin Gorham is a big man that can hit free throws.
I mean, as a team, they shot 74% from the season from the free throw line, which is very, very exceptional, especially for college. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't see that being much of a problem for U of H. But to get into wrapping near this up, we got two more. I got two more questions for you. One of them, you already know what the question's going to be, but I want to know. Excuse me, real quick. Okay, I want to know UH. Where do you got them finishing in this bracket?
Whew. Like I said, anything short of Sweet 16 is going to be a disappointment. Um, I think that West Virginia matchup will be the difficult one. I honestly just finished recording a podcast with we had a guest. His name is Chris Gardner, who covers U of H for the Houston Round Ball Review,
Yeah,
and he talked about how that West Virginia matchup, that's where he had U of H going, getting knocked out in the Sweet 16, and they ran into West Virginia just because of the matchup in terms of how they could match up with Houston. Like they'd match up well with Houston. So, but here's another thing: upsets happen. So maybe West Virginia isn't the team in the Sweet 16, but I think could I see them advance through the Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Like you said, I think there's just so many teams when it comes to Illinois or shoot, even Oklahoma State. Um, I think the biggest matchup problem for them will be West Virginia. Um, if they do meet them in the Sweet 16.
Mhm.
If they can get past West Virginia, I think you could potentially, then you could start maybe if they can get to the Final Four, stuff like that. I think that'll be their biggest challenge in the Midwest region. But even then, the reason I say that is with U of H, they kind of tend to have success against teams with a big man. And obviously Illinois with their big man
Yeah.
just because of the way they play defense. And it's something that college teams haven't been able to figure out. When it comes to West Virginia, that's not their strength, and that's really why I see the Mountaineers. That's the biggest threat to U of H and getting into the Elite Eight and Final Four.
Yeah, right away when I saw this Midwest region and it being the pretty much the last region announced on
Hmm.
Selection Sunday, and not seeing West Virginia being announced until the final, that's the one where I went, oh damn, that's not going to be good for UH. That's where I have them to stop at the Sweet 16, just because Bob Huggins is a really good coach. The full court press just gets to teams, man. If you don't
Yeah,
know how to play around it, it gets to teams.
yeah. That's going to be the tricky thing. And uh, how can they limit the turnovers when they are pressed? And I believe a lot of teams are going to do it in the conference tournament just because they saw Memphis have so much success with it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I mean, okay, before I do ask the last question, because we keep talking about Memphis so much, I gotta know how hyped, how excited, how I mean, what for a lack of better word, how awesome was that last second game winner from Mac? Explain the emotions.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I remember. Okay, so I'll take you back to that where the reporters are in Fertitta Center. We're up top, not exactly on top of the upper concourse, but we're like in the lower bowl, but at the very top. And the sequence before that was insane. U of H was up by 3 points, and Lester Quinones shot a three and
Mhm.
missed it so badly that it bounced off so many players right into the hands of Boogie Ellis. He shoots a three and he ties it with like 1.7 seconds, I think. And obviously, U of H called timeout, but in college basketball, you can't move the ball up to the front court like you can in the NBA. So you got Marcus Sasser inbounding the ball, and I believe Memphis had a big on him. Um,
Mhm.
and then you see Marcus Sasser overhanded throw a bounce pass to Tremont Mark at half court. He catches it, spins, turns around, and then shoots it. And me all the way up there, I had a camera and I just start spamming it. And I stop. And the moment I look up, I see the shot. It banks in, and everyone, first of all, Fertitta Center had about 25% capacity. So everyone there got freaking loud and they were all hyped. And even the media, like I'll tell you, everyone in the media was surprised when they saw that. And shoot, like it's cool. Like that's only the second buzzer beater that I've seen in person.
Yeah.
And the first one came last season when BYU beat
Mhm.
Houston, the
Yeah.
University of Houston, at
Mhm.
the buzzer.
Mhm.
Um, but it was an insane shot, and it was just when you see that, feel that energy, like it's crazy. And obviously, as a reporter, you're kind of more disconnected in terms of like that fan aspect. But
Mhm.
shoot, it doesn't matter who you are when you see a freaking half court buzzer beater. You get like you feel the energy, it
Yeah.
buzz, and it's insane. It's something I won't forget.
Yeah, man, that was absolutely amazing. My dad missed it. I watched it. I about jumped out my damn seat. That was absolutely awesome, man.
Uh,
It's finally good to see that UH is getting near back on top of the college basketball world again. And
mhm.
I just love to see the consistency, and I don't doubt it with Kelvin Sampson at the helm. But the last question, we've talked about a little bit of it, was UH, but the last question, just big old prediction. UH wins the entire thing. What do you think about that?
It's a possibility. If I was a betting man, I would not bet on U of H just because of, and this is no shade. I could totally see them making a deep run just because of how they're built and how their identity is.
Mhm.
But I think when you look at the other teams, like shoot, we haven't even talked about Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan's the other number one seed, and then you got Alabama. Um, who's the other? I know Texas is a 3 seed in the East region, I believe. There's just so many teams, and you know, to make that, I don't see, obviously Houston's not going to be favored no matter what to win a national championship. And if I
Mhm.
had to bet, I wouldn't bet on Houston winning it.
Yeah.
But the reason I wouldn't be surprised if they make a deep run, and like by deep run I mean like Final Four and championship game, is just because I go back to their identity, man. They're physical. They're not. It's crazy how physical they are, and they're relentless. When it comes to crashing the glass, and that's something that other teams, it's hard to prepare for until you're actually playing them. And that's something, I forget which head coach it was, but one of the American Athletic Conference coaches said that they're gonna surprise a lot of teams just because of how physical they are, and really how good. And when you if you haven't seen them play a game, it's hard to explain unless you watch them just
Yeah.
how good they are at tracking down rebounds. And that's why they get second, they get third, fourth, fifth, hold so many second chance points. And dude, it doesn't matter who it is. That's something that they can control, and that's something that they're always gonna be locked in at. So, like I said earlier, if one of the three guards gets hot and pushes them offensively, I
Mhm.
could totally see them making a deep run. Can they do that for 6 games? That's the question, and that's why I would not bet on them, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I could see a Final Four. I could see it. I can see that potential matchup with a Baylor, or
Yeah,
I could see it. I
yeah,
really can. And maybe I'm just a biased UH fan, but I definitely can see it. And like you referencing their identity with them rebounding and their physicality, almost averaging 10 turnovers a game, which is not too bad as well either. So they pass the ball a lot and they don't commit too many turnovers. So overall, I think that's a pretty good recipe going into the tournament. But this was fun, man. This was
yeah,
fun.
for sure.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead and if you want, let the people know where to find you, my man.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I said on Twitter, honestly on all handles, I'm a Yanez underscore 5. That's capital A, capital Y. Um, if you follow me on Twitter for game days, you're gonna get spammed with a whole bunch. Your timeline is gonna get spammed with a whole bunch of U of H updates. But I'm on Instagram. Same thing. A Yanez underscore 5, or it might just be A Yanez 5. Uh, my Instagram is pretty cool. I have like photos that I've taken of the mostly basketball games up to this point, but I've taken a few photos for baseball and for women's basketball as well. So if you want to see some of those cool shots, I have the Tremont Mark buzzer beater on my Instagram, and yeah, for Twitter, you follow me there, you'll find my updates when the players and coaches have availability and articles and stuff like that.
That's this is awesome, man. You have the dream job for me. Like it's something I've always wanted to do, and I know just before I do end it, how much stress do you have, man?
Ooh, it's interesting because well, it's a dream. I'm living my dream job right now as well, but it's not my official job. You know what I mean? Because like it's technically part time because you're a student and whatever whatnot. Right now I'm on spring break, so it's a little bit more chill. But when was it? I believe it was in the middle of February on a specific day. That day was crazy. I had so many Zoom meetings. I had the men's basketball had some. They usually have it like around 11 in the morning or 10 around there. I had class. So I spent 2 hours of class and at one I had another Zoom meeting because I was trying to freelance for the Houston Chronicle and I was trying to freelance for the rugby team. I think they're called the Sabercats.
Yeah.
So I joined a Zoom for them. They had like their first Zoom. And then after that, I had class after that. So I had like a freaking 4 or 5 hour chunk where I was just busy. But honestly, you're busy, but it's not like you're drained while you're doing it. Especially, it all pays off whenever you see moments like the Tremont Mark buzzer beater. Like that's what the best thing about this. Like, and I don't even like to call it a job because I don't feel like it's a job.
Yeah, yeah. That's what happens when you love what you're doing, man. It's not a job, man. You just love what you
Yeah.
do. Show up every day. You can't wait to go to and get going, man. But thank you, Andy, for coming on. If I will drop your podcast in the description below,
For
as
sure.
well as all your socials. If anybody wants to check them out, will be in the description below. But as always, guys, go Astros, go Rockets, go Texans, go Cougars.
March Madness, best time of the year, especially after last year. Let's
Yes, sir.
go.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
excited. I'm
I'm
excited.
excited too. I'm excited too.
Uh,
Everyone, y'all have a blessed night.